Hello, welcome back to the Future Nerd, and today we are going to learn about OOP, the object-oriented programming. There are four pillars of object-oriented programming. These are encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and the polymorphism. Okay, what is encapsulation? Encapsulation means grouping of related variables and functions together. Let's say you have in before object oriented programming we were using procedural languages, and we have a bunch of functions and properties that we have to manage, and at the end the functions are making some clutter, and the code maintenance of code was very difficult. So after the object oriented programming, so encapsulation means grouping of related variables and functions together to perform operations on that data, and we have functions for them to perform some operations. And it removes complexity of code maintenance, and it increases the reusability as well. We have to manage a record of 4,000 students. Then we have to define the name of a student and its address, its last name, its email, and anything, and we have to repeat that properties for each user for 400 times. 4,000 or 400, as many users that you have. So there comes encapsulation that groups the related properties and the methods or functions related to that object. So it encapsulates every property and method of that object to reuse it, and it remove complexity of the application as well. And then comes abstraction. Abstraction is hiding the logic and provide a simple interface to play. Let's say you have an audio player or any machine that you have. Let's say you have a laptop, and you know you have to press any button to perform some operation, but underneath you don't know what is happening and what is going on underneath. So you just have an interface to play around, and you don't know what is happening underneath. So it provides methods for the world to play, but it hides the logic in it and its properties and its some methods that you do not want to give the access to the outer world from that object. And there is another benefit of abstraction, that it accepts changes. Let's say you have a class and you have the properties in that class and some methods, and these properties are hidden from the outer world, and you have these methods that the outer world can use. So if you delete these methods or some properties, there would be no effect on the outer world because you were not giving the access to these properties and methods to play around. So the application would be stable and you can make changes accordingly. And then comes inheritance. In inheritance, it removes the redundant code and it increases reusability of the code that you were using again and again. So let's see with an example for inheritance. Let's say you have a student and teacher, and student have name, email, address, and student can mark their attendance on the attendance machine, and teacher also have the name, email, and addresses, and they also mark their attendance on the machine. So why we are using these duplicate properties and these methods? So let's create a base class, and the student and teacher class would be using that logic from the parent class, that is base class, and these properties would be accessible for the student and teacher, and you can manage it, and you can see that you do not have to repeat this piece of code. And the student and teacher can have multiple other methods and properties that are corely related to the student and teacher. So it reduces the redundancy of the code, and it increases its reusability as well. The other one is the polymorphism, and poly means multiple and morph mean forms, multiple forms. It simplifies the code and remove complexity. Let's see how it happen. And let's say you have a base class for student and teacher, and you and the student and teacher have their method homework, and student do homework like prepare some assignments, and teacher have their homework like preparing the exam paper, something like that. And they have different logic for teacher and student. So whenever you are calling the method homework, it would work accordingly depending on the type of the object, whether it is student or teacher. So these are two methods performing some different logic. And to learn the object oriented programming for the real time coding, you can subscribe and see my playlist.